Hi, folks. Well, welcome to Proost podcast number 18, which is actually 17.1 or 17A, maybe, because it's the second part of a chat that began about wilderness retreating in pod 17. So if you should be tempted to listen to this one first, it will probably be more sensible to listen to number 17 before you listen to this one. This is a continuation of a chat which, again, involved some friends of mine that were part of a wilderness retreat to the island of Lunga back in May of this year. I'm reflecting on the fact that this time there were 12 men on the retreat. That's not always the case, but this time it was an all-male group of 12 of us that went out. I'm not generally a fan of male-only activities. Spent a lot of my time working in female-dominated professions in the care sector as a social worker and within the mental health services. I think generally speaking, there's something about all-male company and male spirituality that tends towards the Iron John narrative, which I find quite toxic. Possibly that's because the general press that all male anything gets these days, because of the mess we've made of things, is pretty toxic. I think there's an argument here, though, for, despite my reluctance, there's some male aeroplanes going past that might affect a little bit of the sounds that you're getting. I do wonder if there is an argument for reclaiming a different kind of male spirituality. I don't know how to categorise that. I don't know how to describe it. It feels even dangerous to talk about that because of the aforementioned toxicity, which tends to kind of come along with those sorts of labels. But if there is a way of describing it, to me, it's about vulnerability. It's about men going deeper than the surface together and daring to share that with one another. And that's why I go to these islands with these people who are my soul friends. So enough of me, let's hear some more of that. I think this video will kick off with me asking some questions again to a widening group of friends, beginning with the three that were involved in the last video, then widening out a little. So I hope you enjoy it. The spectrum of belief ranges from people who are 7-day creationists through to people who would describe themselves as atheists, not even agnostics, but atheists, have certainly been part of these gatherings. And I think we've been really careful to try. That itself means that the language we use is really important, because if you start to kind of use too many, and I think actually we probably still do, because you don't always realise that you're doing it when it's familiar language, do you? But it just means that we're quite careful to allow a generosity to one another, which I think has always been really lovely for me, because my perspective on these things has changed so much. So I'm just wondering, have there been personal kind of consequences in your lives, particularly, in the periods you've talked about, that have happened because of these trips? I'm remembering a time when you were in a very different place, Graham.
It was a different island, so it's a very different place.
Oh, right then. Pedant.
Different life place, yeah.
Graham has a terrible problem with pedantry.
Yes, and a terrible problem with
It's been seen a pedantrist.
Yeah. Oh, very good, Chris. I'm going to take that and use it as one of mine.
Your feet all right?
I was having a difficult time. I was in full-time church ministry, and what I used to say about the church, I won't go into the detail, but the church was like the little girl with the little curl. When she was good, she was very, very good. When she was bad, she was horrid, and I experienced in myself the feeling of horridness, but also the feeling I couldn't carry on, and I came here quite angsty. And the first year it was a safety valve, and the second year it was a safety valve, and then the third year I was due to come. I was moving house to a rented house out of a church house because I'd left. So what I have found is this space, and I like how you described how we've slowed down, because I came. It would be presumptuous to describe what my faith is, because it sounds egotistical. But I came from a background that's probably more evangelical, was more evangelical, and there's a certain anxiety about that, of trying to make God do things, or quite activist. That was my perspective. If it's yours, please don't take any insult from that. But this is you can do nothing. The place does it to you. And I do bring a journal. Sounds very middle class, and it is, which I write things down. And I did a blog entry. Chris and I met through blogging. That's the first thing. Because your daughter describes one of the strange men you met off the internet.
That is true in so many different ways. Yes.
But I keep a paper journal, and I noticed in the last couple of years there's not many entries, and I wrote something about this and about coming, and said that I write bad poetry. It's unpublishable. It's for me. It helps me.
That isn't what you call it, actually, is it?
No, I'm going to come to that. When I come to that, and what I was going to write in the initial draft was I write shit poetry, because it is shit. And then somebody on one of the wards I work on, somebody that's an impatient, said, I think you should say shit poetry because it's more honest. And I've written one now. Well, I'm not going to read to you because it's for me. But it's that idea, that validation, that doing stuff like that is part of your life. I felt before I was kind of doing it in the corner and not owning up to it. And it's, I think what Neil said, it's just, well, I'm taking my perception, it's that unfiltered space where anything could happen, nothing could happen, but you just start to notice the small things and the slowness. I think I spoke to you, Chris. I was tired, getting more tired of. I want objective-free church, not like a vibrant church, destiny church, biblical church, because all those things sound very tiring. Just a sense of community. I like you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Just then. One of the sort of things we've been exploring on this podcast, that this will form part of, is how we make sense of spirituality in our context, and I guess how creativity and different ways to explore spirituality might facilitate in the context that we're moving into is kind of what the Proost project is all about. And so we've spent a lot of time this weekend, or I have spent a lot of time talking this weekend. I'm hoping that you might have joined me on some of that journey, talking about a certain kind of spirituality that perhaps arises from these islands as much as anything, around the Celtic tradition of earth connectedness, of a sense of oneness with all things, of original goodness that we carry within us, that is the life source and the very being of all things that are. That's the sort of deep stuff, as well as all the fart jokes and things that we lace the whole thing with. So I'm just wondering, in this kind of background hum of dread that we've all kind of talked about, with the big questions of climate breakdown and Trumpism and just the sense of a civilization coming to its apotheosis. It's a good word, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't a clue what it means, but I liked using it. I'll put it in a poem. So I'm just wondering, my feeling is that these places have something to say about that, but I'm just wondering if that makes sense to you guys.
I think it does, and I think for me, a lot of why I come here is it's unenforced, usually, where that you can disconnect from all the noise, all the things that are coming at you from every different direction, and just be and experience, and just be open and listen to what other people are saying, but listen to what you're hearing from being in a place like this. And that's from nature, it's from God too. It's all kinds of different things, but it opens you up, because you don't need to spend time trying to shut out the noise. It's gone. And I think I said yesterday when we were chatting, I think, you know, years and years ago, human beings saw the world as a potentially dangerous place. The world out there, the wilderness, and had an openness to that and to God, and realizing their smallness. And then the last few hundred years, we've gone through a place where human beings have thought that actually we've gone beyond a lot of this. We don't need to be scared of the world, we can control it. And that puts us in a very different place spiritually, I think, that we think we don't need anything. And I think now maybe we're getting to the point where we're seeing that some of that is breaking down, that things aren't necessarily just going to get better, and putting us back in a place where we just need to think, actually, we don't know it all. We need to listen. We need to listen spiritually. We need to listen to what we see and encounter around us, and not just look to use it.
So can you say a little bit more, one of you, I suppose, bringing the camera towards you, Andrew, just in thinking about how does coming to an island like this then allow us to do that? How does it allow us to listen more, to feel that connection more, perhaps?
Well, it creates a separation between us and the rest of the world, temporarily. So it helps you get a new perspective. So I think it's not about escaping from the world. We've brought the world with us. We have brought some amenities which make life a bit easier. But the fact that we've been dropped off by a boat that we know won't come back for at least 2 days forces a separation between us and the world, and it helps give you a perspective. I think one person said, because we've been talking about the innate goodness of people, which is hard to believe when you hear the news, and yet someone quoted, I think it's Simon Reeve, who said 98% of people he meets when he travels are good, and I think that is still very true. Often people are acting in a way that to protect the people they love, and the way they act may not be good for everyone else around them, but they're doing it out of a sense of what they think is right. I still have hope, I think, for the world, that things can get better. But like you said, technology and society and population growth make us very reliant on each other, and we forget about our reliance on the natural world.
Absolutely.
And it's a powerful reminder that the natural world is far more powerful than any man-made creation. We're all aware that if we all forgot to bring a tent, then we'd really be struggling. Or
we would have to share with somebody who was snoring.
Which is practically every one of us. Yes. And most of us are men of a certain age.
We brought enough water for the whole group, because we weren't sure if there was a water supply. So it kind of reminds you that some basic necessities aren't always available. And actually, and I think things like Celtic spirituality, which began in some of these islands on this coast, and also on the Welsh coast, grew out of a connectedness with the land. And it was interesting that we met the guy who owns the island.
Yes.
His name was Ninian.
Yes.
Which is one of the ancient Celtic saints.
Absolutely.
I just thought that was quite apt.
This place is, I suppose, this place is Eden I mean, it's not unformed because there's a house there. We come to this place as Eden. In a sense, it's unspoilt. We try and leave it as Eden. We try and leave it tidier than we came, but we come as human beings, as a group of people, into that environment, and we're trying to carry on in the spirit of Eden. So how we make relationships, how we live, and how we act can either create that or diminish that, or if we're humans, lots of things in between. And it's a reminder that nature is wild, and we are at the mercy of nature, where some of our theologies about our human way of acting is to subdue nature. But it's a reminder to us as well that when we're here, whatever we say or do, we tread lightly on with each other. We tread lightly on the environment, the landowner. And if you've got the impression of a landowner with a deer stalker and a cap and a pack of hounds, a lovely bloke, enjoy this island. I want you to enjoy this island. And it's not quite, and God said that it was good, but it's almost an enacted parable.
Yeah. It's funny, one of the comments that Paul, who's somewhere wandering not far away from here, said is that for him, we are living out theology. We're not defining it, and that I loved that idea that just by the community we make, even in all its profanity, or perhaps especially in all its profanity, because it contains that side of us that we often separate out into that duality between the sacred and profane, the sacred and earthly. That because of that, we're an experiment in well, can we do that? Can we do that in the short term? I'm going to turn, and hovering in the background somewhere is James, also using a camera. So, you want to come and stick your face in front of this one?
I'll sit here. Well, I could do.
Yeah, because it'd be good to. James is this second time, third time you've been, something like that? Well, he has a beard, so yeah.
It's my second time.
Second time. Yeah.
It's my second time. Yeah, coming on the island retreats.
Is it really only the second time?
We went on a canoe trip as well. But I missed the last two, essentially because of having a son.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. He's almost 2 years old, so it's nice to get.
And your background is definitely not Christian.
No, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of talk about faith and kind of things, and I don't really have a context to think about my faith in the same way that a lot of kind of professional faith men have, or people who've, I guess in terms of Christian faith, we used to be kind of forced into the church in primary school, which is probably as closest, and maybe sing some carols. And I remember going to my dad's side of the family is very Catholic. I remember going with my gran to like mass, and that was just a bit where we had to get our hair combed. I actually have a very good funny memory of my granddad gave me one parting to the side, and my wee brother Andrew got the middle parting, and we couldn't stop laughing about that.
God likes parted hair. Is that what we're concluding?
It was just the middle part just looked so ridiculous to us. So that's about as churchy.
But your substantial faith community was Baha'i.
So I grew up Baha'i. My parents were both Baha'is. Both found the Baha'i faith on the Isle of Skye, and there was quite a relatively small but strong community of maybe 14, 20 people. And so I grew up with that. Lots of community, I suppose, is most thing. Lots of prayers, devotionals, and we would do children's classes from a young age. And we talk about virtues, and we talk about, to me it all kind of made lots of sense. Obviously you don't really know much different from your own experience, but we would just talk about what it means to be good, and what it means to be, to be truthful, to strive for that. So that's been a nice grounding, I think, for my life. But as I grew up, I kind of drifted away from it as a faith. I never, the God's kind of stuff never really sat comfortably with me. I always kind of, I guess, rebelled against that, or never quite understood the need for it. Same like with the Baha'i faith, I always think, I mean, everything that they say seems to be true to me in terms of acting. There's a big part of Baha'i faith which is about service. You should strive to serve your community, your family, your parents. You find a lot of Baha'is tend to be doctors or a lot of dentists and things, which is quite a lucrative way of serving, I suppose.
It's the best way.
But yeah, so there's always that, and I remember having a good conversation with a lovely woman called Tracy, who she was Baha'i, and her kids, they were in Uist, and we'd get together so often and have weekends. And she was saying, well, I didn't know what to do after school, and she was saying, well, you in many ways you should go study, you should go do something that you can give back to the world. And I thought, nah, I'm off, I'm going to go travelling first. But then eventually come back, and I came into doing marine science, which was really fun. But I kind of just left my faith then. I didn't really think about it. So this is my only form of church, is once a year or once every 3 years, come here.
So what you, I mean, you've listened to some of the chat earlier about, what makes this work, what constitutes the spirituality that we create together. Have you got anything to add to that from your experience? Or?
I find it quite interesting. I was asking Neil about his kind of what his role as a vicar is. I was like, because it's your faith, but it's also your job, and I was like, how does that actually work? You're in charge of the church, and I was like, are you in charge of the maintenance of the building and all these other things? And you're like a one-man band, but you require the participation of a congregation and all this stuff. And it's just fun. I actually have no really idea about how it works. So for me, it's really interesting to hear about this, the struggles or the thoughts, people's, coming to terms with their faith in that way. But my faith has always really been, if I think this is kind of my bit. So I grew up on Skye in a very similar rural area to this, and we actually used to go and kind of worship our own pagan god on the wee island across from my house. We called them Wazi Woo Woo, and we used to find these old ruins, and we'd pretend that they were. We'd go far to the beach.
There wasn't much else to do on Skye.
There wasn't much, but these are funny things to remember when we were about 10. A group of 6 of us lads, and we'd go eat limpets on the beach, and we would live a primitive life. And we always kind of yearned for that, thinking that was the way. Like, what must it have been like to just be? And we'd never stay out past late at night, but you would always think, what would it be like to live in this area? And so when we come back here, it reminds me of that. Or I love cooking, I cook my lamb in the ground, and I just love that idea of this is how we lived. Without, you shed the burden of everything else, and you think, just eat simple food out of the ground. Or how would we survive in this area, and then what would be important to you. So in that respect, I have such a different experience from people living in that kind of big community of churches and kind of more structured faith. I don't have
but
that.
There's still something of meaning that has meant that you've come here at least twice. I've come to one of these retreats at least twice.
Yeah. Well, you're the kind of charismatic figure.
Is it because you come into worship the Great White Leader?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
No, it is. And
so
if I
too.
didn't do this, where would I get my fart jokes? No, I mean, I love it. It's really nice, and it just makes me think about the spirituals, and we did the communion yesterday. I shared a little Baha'i prayer, which I haven't said in a long time, but so it makes me think of where is my faith, and I don't really have an answer for that, but it makes me remember aspects of that, of my faith growing up, and what could that mean now?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I come away with that kind of spiritual refreshment.
Yeah.
But we're not always about, I mean, that's one of the things from here, is we're not always about finding answers here. We're about maybe thinking about what the questions might be.
Yes. No, I like, yeah.
And maybe some of our thoughts, but not expecting that this fixes things, but this opens up possibilities so that we can maybe end up in a different place than we would otherwise have been if we'd never been to a place like this.
Yeah.
That's why I keep coming.
No, I think if you could extend, if everyone could have a weekend like this in their calendar, I'm sure it would. You couldn't get much less than a benefit from that.
Well said. And I see Andrew over the way there. I hope the microphone can pick up your thoughts, but you may have to project your voice, Andrew. So
I have no words.
he has no words. Okay, well, all right.
I'm unprojectable.
Okay, well, that's probably just as well. In that case, I will pan away from you and allow you to continue to be a listener. And welcome David.
Greetings.
That's his Sunday name. He has many others.
Yes.
So we've just had around chat. We've been talking about that question, I suppose, of what brings us here and what meaning do we find. And we've sort of talked a lot of the boxes through. But what brings you back? Why do you feel that this is worth spending a weekend out of your very, very busy life with these old farts, basically? And James, he's a young fart.
Yeah. It's the spirituality of these islands. I think they're very deep, and they feed the soul, and they never fail to do that. Friendship, sense of temporary community, where you laugh together, you're vulnerable together, and it's people that you want to invest in and be invested in by them. And I always leave with my soul uplifted and a little smellier.
I can vouch for the latter, not for the former. Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think sometimes the kind of being in the wilderness and camping doesn't necessarily come easy to me, but sometimes you've got to move out your comfort zone in order to change and go through transformation. And so for me, it's me pushing myself in that way as well.
Have these trips actually been part of a change process for you?
Yes. A lot of building friendships with people who have had a part in changing me and helping mould how I see things. Different spiritual practices I've come to value, of the wild, the wilderness, the beauty of nature, silence and stillness. Those are things that have changed me, and things that I deeply value now.
I should confess that you're another one of the people that my children were worried about. Strange men that I met on the internet.
The said the better.
Yes, indeed. But I guess we've shared that common approach to, I suppose, through the whole emerging church kind of discussions and everything, of just trying to kind of pursue after some kind of faith that works in context, and faith that has becomes a vehicle for travel, in the times that we're living in. And I guess my feeling is that's one of the reasons I still come to this island, is because of that, and because of the friendships that allow me to kind of make that journey together. But we've also been reflecting this weekend about just earth connectedness, and how that also might be a means that we can take away from places like this, that helps us to kind of re-engage more meaningfully with the doom that's out there.
It's a chance to come away from what is your normal environment, and actually sort of refreshing in it. And it's in a place of acceptance where you can come and be who you are and speak to where you are and not have to feel and that you're being judged or anything like that. And so to have people like that you can travel with in a place like this, I think is transformational.
Yeah.
I find it's really interesting for me being among many learned people, and like we've got priests and vicars and heads of schools, and that I find that is people who are in leadership roles, who are then can be in this space, open up and be vulnerable about, which I imagine must be a struggle in the within your normal life. So do you find you have other outlets like for you?
To me it's about friendship and finding people to journey with. And often in Scotland that's difficult to find, which is why Chris and I connected over the internet, because there was a shared journey going on and we became close friends who can understand the journey one another and on. And I think some of the friendships that we build here are those safe places and safe people that you can just be honest with, and in many ways leave your identities back. Whether it's leader of what, and come here and we are just who we bring here. And we
bunch of apes.
Well, we do, and we mock one another, and we sometimes cry together and drink whiskey, but it's deep and it's authentic, and that's what's really important. And a place where you don't have to explain what you mean by this and what you mean by that. You can just speak from an honest place and not feel judged.
Yeah. I was saying earlier in the discussion that in the early days we used to bring so many resources, and we prepare these meditations and all these kind of things that, and now I think what we tend to see is things emerge. I might have a few vague ideas, and other people will have vague ideas, and different people will lead elements of it. And you're just as we're leaving, we're just waiting for the boat, which will be coming for us in 25 minutes, so we'd better get a wriggle on. But you're just about to help us reflect a little bit on just our gratefulness for one another, aren't you? Which is, I guess, a good place to end. Is that place of friendship? And there are people here that I see once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year if I'm lucky, who are some of the deepest friends and the most special people in my life. So it's just, that could happen anywhere, but the fact that it happens here too, it's like the landscape itself becomes a friend. And I don't know whether there's any better way to end than just this beautiful tree here that's kind of shadowing and sheltering and just kind of being our friend through the weekend as well. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
We'll journey on.
See you next year.
So there you are, the end of our video around our retreat. Just as we close, I want to read you something that we read twice during our retreat. We did communion while we were away. I don't know if it was mentioned by any of the chat we just heard. One of the few times that I can remember where communion felt mystical. We sat out on a little bit that juts out over the top of the water, a tree giving some shelter. The sun was shining, and we shared communion in a very unsubstitutionary atonement kind of way, if that makes any sense. So yeah, this was the poem that we read. It's actually a prayer from the Black Book of Carmarthen, which was written around 1250 in Wales somewhere, when the Celtic tradition was still alive and well. Perhaps it still is. So here's the poem. I am the wind that breathes upon the sea. I am the wave on the ocean. I am the murmur of leaves rustling. I am the rays of the sun. I am the beam of the moon and stars. I am the power of trees growing. I am the bud breaking into blossom. I am the movement of the salmon swimming. I am the courage of the wild boar fighting. I am the speed of the stag running. I am the strength of the ox pulling the plough. I am the size of the mighty oak tree. I am the thoughts of all people who praise my beauty and grace. 1250. People were making their own adventures into nature. They just didn't call it a wilderness retreat at that time. It was just normal. So I hope we're heading back in that direction. And thanks for listening.